Tune in now to Revive Radio.
Tonya. I'm a podcast host of Mommy Matters, The Wind Down, and mobile app creator, and I need you to tune in to Revive Radio.
This is Charles Wilson Adams, where I chose Health 215. I encourage you to be a hero by starting a conversation. You are now tuned in with Revive Radio.
You are listening to Revive Radio. The views and opinions expressed on Revive Radio does not necessarily reflect ownership, management, and advertisers of Revive Radio.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You already know what time it is. ReviveIsAlive.com. Once again, ReviveIsAlive.com. Tune in. Revive is alive.
Welcome to Revive. It's about that time. Welcome to Revive. It's about that time. All I need is one mic. You know what time it is. Open up your ears. You know what time it is. Open up your mind. It's about that time. It's your girl P.O.C. Hey! It's your girl P.O.C. Hey! Proof of consciousness. Proof of consciousness. P.O.C. You know what time it is. Open up your ears. You know what time it is. Open up your mind. All I need is it's about that time. Welcome to Revive. Welcome to Revive. Welcome to Revive.
Yep. You already know what time it is, man. It's your girl P.O.C., host of Revive Radio, man. We are back live on Revive is Alive, Revive is Alive, ReviveIsAlive.com. Turn your radios up, switch your dials over, man. You already know each and every time we come through, we got a jam-packed show. We got an amazing special guest on the line right now. If you can see him on the screen, he getting ready like it's a boxing match, you know what I'm saying? Going back and forth with it. I'm excited. I love the energy that this man comes with. He goes by the young exec. Yo, Carl, you're live on Revive, man. How you feeling today?
Yeah, all is amazing. P.O.C., I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for letting me on your platform.
Always, man, always. I appreciate you for coming through. I know you got a message for us today. And in a time like this, it's more, of a reason why we need to be connecting and sharing the messages that you always put out first and foremost. But before we get into all, the chaos that's going on, I just want to, start with you. How are you as a person? How's everything going on in your end with you and your family?
As a person, thank God I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm blessed. I'm alive. I'm healthy. I'm sane.
Yes.
So I'm able to say all of this because it's like you said, it's been so much going on. But, in the midst of that, I had to take a step back and just be still for a moment, I took a mental health and spiritual wellness break. I literally took 3 days off of social media, and I was just praying and connecting with God because there's too many times we just react out of anger or rage, and we don't take the time to center ourselves. So I'm feeling good right now. I was able to refuel.
That's real. I definitely agree with you on that. I definitely took some time this weekend myself. You know what I mean? Yes. It was for me. It was very crazy and strange, but I love how the universe always works out. I got a random call from a family member because I'm originally from DC, but I'm located in Philadelphia, and I got a random call from a family member like, "Yo, we're having a party this weekend. I'm coming from DC to come get you to take you back to DC so we can have a party because we want you to be there." And in the midst of all that, on Saturday, all the chaos breaks out in Philadelphia on Saturday and Sunday. So I wasn't even here. So I just feel like, with my emotional self, if I would have been in this city when all of that was going on, I just know for a fact it would have been different. So I definitely agree with you just taking a mental health break. And it was crazy how the universe called me when I needed to be called because I definitely would have, been in a different situation. So I definitely agree with you on that. I definitely agree with you on that. Everything is in divine timing. Everything is
timing. So how are you and how's everything out in Philly?
Philly right now, me personally, just talk about me for a second. Me, I'm great. I'm a little angry. I'm a little frustrated, a little confused because I have a responsibility. But at the same time, I'm still black. You know what I mean? I'm still a woman. I'm still, so much comes before this platform, but at the same time I have a responsibility with this platform. So I'm just trying to tread water a little bit on that one. But as far as Philadelphia, the communities are rebuilding. You know, if you actually talking to the people in the streets, the people who live on those streets that were, you know, the riots and the protests were breaking out on, they're not even upset. They're not even mad. If anything, they're more frustrated that it went left. It went the way that it did, because prior to that, when they were looking out their windows at the protesters, it wasn't going down like that in that way. So I would say the residents of Philadelphia who actually live here, we're just rebuilding, we're cleaning up, and we're ready to buy back our blocks. You know what I mean? Like, this was just more motive for us to have different conversations about our blocks. You know what I mean? As we rebuild our blocks, we're talking about buying our blocks. So it's definitely a conversation out there, and definitely a new narrative in which we see on social media. So Philadelphia is actually in a good space, definitely. And I want to talk about what you do. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So let's go ahead and introduce you properly and tell the people exactly what you do.
Yes. I go by the name of Young Exec, called Michel. I come from a place called Haiti.
Yes.
Born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Raised
Ça
in
passe.
Not bully.
Love Haiti. I love that country, yo.
So I spent a lot of my time in Queens, New York, and of course Brooklyn. I went to school down at Morgan State University.
Shout out to the HBCUs.
Absolutely. Shout out to HBCUs out there. I have my bachelor's degree in business management, minor in entrepreneurship. So I'm from a little bit of everywhere. So I was able to learn and evolve in every part of town that I lived in, which is a huge blessing. I got involved in a marketing company when I was in college, and I worked so hard, I became the youngest executive director in the state of Maryland while I was out there. So that's where I get the name Young Executive from.
That's big. Right? Was that a goal for you? Or is that just something you achieved?
No, over there, that was definitely a goal, because it was a very prestige level in the company. But everyone that I learned from, I had a great mentor. My mentor was a multi-millionaire. This was the first time I saw a young black man that achieved that level of success, millions of dollars in business.
Awesome.
You know, before I thought, okay, the only way you can make money is if you sell drugs, you play ball, or if you rap. You understand?
That's real.
But he was the first one, my mentor, Mr. Darnell Self, he was the first one that showed me, no, you can be a multi-millionaire in business, be young and black and gifted. And that was the spark I needed. And from that point where I met him, that was my goal. I got to become executive director. And once I became executive director, I was just being sought out, being flown out all over the country. A lot of people were having me reach out to the younger generation. I recruited so many different college students, and that's how I gained the name Young Executive. Everyone started realizing that I was gifted in business and gifted in speaking. And fast forward to 2016, I released my first book, which is called 365
Hip Hop. Yes.
Daily motivational quotes.
Yes.
And that book actually hit #1 on Amazon. And if you look right now, to this day, if you look, I checked it earlier today. It was still top 5, dead or alive.
That's big. Congratulations, man. We need more, we need more black authors. We definitely need more black authors, and we need more people to support black authors so we can, stay #1 in those categories. Because they swear black people don't read, but we got black authors that's #1. You know what I mean? So that's how you know it's a lot of stereotypes out there that are not true at all. So I want to ask you something, especially coming out of Baltimore, right? And even having, the spark that you had in Maryland, especially during that time, because in 2016, that's when everything, really kicked in full gear when you dropped the book and things like that. But you've already been an executive in the, in the city of Baltimore, which is in the state of Maryland. So at that time, we also had some crazy stuff going on with like Freddie Gray, and that's happened in 2015. You know what I mean? So in the midst of all of that, while that was going on, you were still able to, come up out of it and become a boss. But as you were going through that, what did you see in your community, especially in Baltimore? And that's one of the toughest cities, for black and brown people in America.
Yeah, it's one of the toughest cities. I was still up. I moved back to Connecticut after I graduated school, but I was definitely visiting Baltimore often. But I seen the disparities in what the news was covering, which was the most important thing. Yes, we were angry. Yes, there was a lot of things going on, but it wasn't as bad as the news was portraying it to be. You understand? And then in addition to that, I saw young black leaders emerging, like Mr. Mosby out there, and so many other people just staking their claim and saying, no, these are our communities. We're going to represent it, and we're going to lead the people in the direction that they need to be led in. And I love Mosby had an amazing interview where the reporter was trying to get him to comment on the rioting. But a lot of times, matter of fact, it's too many times we're only commenting on the results, but not getting to the root of it. Like, where do you think this came from? Like, what do you think is the root of this? The root of this is systemic racism that we've been experiencing time after time after time. So it was a very, very sensitive time, but we definitely pulled through that.
Definitely. And for me, I feel like we're talking about something that happened in 2015 in Baltimore, and now we're talking about, you know, things that are happening now in 2020. But before I get into all that, I wanted to go into a video that you did, and it was about, you know, you can trap my body, but you cannot trap my mind. And I thought that this was a even, you know, greater time to speak on this subject, especially at this time, because we don't know what to do, right? With our physical beings or in our physical selves, we don't know what to do. But this is now more than ever the time we need to educate ourselves, be, you know, on our self-care tip, get into ourselves, making sure we're full, we're whole as one, you know. So I really wanted to get on that video because when I listened to that video and I listened to what you said, and I love how you even quoted Jay-Z to make it, you know, relatable and transparent to people so they can understand. So talk to me a little bit about why that was important to you.
Right. So for those of you who don't know the quote, it's come from Jay-Z's song "Can I Live." He said, "Lock my body, can't trap my mind," and that's a lot of people before all this revolution started happening. A lot of people were feeling like they were on lockdown because we were in quarantine, and everyone was like, "Oh man, I can't be in this house. I feel stuck here. I feel like I'm on lockdown." But it's physically you might be inside, but mentally you can be anywhere you want to be, right? So I need you guys to understand, no matter what is going on in your environment, you're still mentally free. Even if you're in a cell, a jail cell, you're still mentally free, right? Lock my body, but can't trap my mind. So you have the ability, you have the freedom to think outside the box. You have the freedom to spend more time with your family. You have the freedom to pick up a new skill or trade or something along the lines of that, because you're not physically in jail. You might just be in the house, right? So you're able to pick up a new trade, learn a new skill. YouTube University, like YouTube has everything on there. You
That's
know,
real.
you have time to literally build relationships with your family members. Like, you are put in a position right now where you're able to have these honest dialogues and have real conversations with sometimes people that you haven't had real conversations with in a long time. It forces you to actually communicate with your loved ones and those around you. So it doesn't have to be a lockdown mentally just because you're inside the house, you know? You have the ability to transform your life. And if you make it out of this quarantine and you pick up a new skill, you read several new books, and you're inspired to do some different things, you're going to be in a much better position than 99% of America, because most people in these circumstances don't do anything at all. So if you read more than you did before, if you learn more than you did before, if you do more than you did before, then you're going to be more.
So since we're talking about reading, you know, you got to go ahead and drop some books other than your book, but you could drop your book. Go ahead and make that plug right there. But drop some books for us, you know.
365 hip hop daily motivational quotes.
Yes.
Right. So I created my book again, and I released in 2016, and I based it because every time I turned on the radio, I heard a destructive message: sex, drugs, money, violence. Same message, different beat, every single song, right? So instead of jumping in the booth and trying to be a rapper, I wanted to highlight the positive things.
Everybody got to do their part.
Everybody got to do their part, you know? So just because I love hip hop doesn't mean that I can't participate in it. I'll just be able to quote and write about it as opposed to making a song.
That needs to be a t-shirt, man, because there's so many rappers out there that need to hear that message. They're not rappers, but you could do another part. It doesn't have to be behind the protection.
And so many people don't realize it because what they see is the star. They think the star is the person that's getting all the money, all the accolades, all the fame and fortune. I know so many business executives that are great behind the scenes. They're making more money than these artists, and they don't have to deal with the BS that comes with being famous. You know what I mean? So being behind the scenes is all good.
I definitely agree with you on that, because when it comes down to these nowadays, everyone wants to get a message off. Everyone has, something that they want to get off their chest, something that they're feeling,
Right.
something emotional that they went through, and they want to express it, but it's not necessarily coming off the way that they want people to receive it, because
Right.
it's a lot, like you said. And even now in the music, I would add, it's an extra piece to it. It's trauma now. It's more like self-inflicting harm on themselves,
Talk to 'em,
So
man.
like at
Talk
one
to 'em.
point, it was about drugs, sex, and money, but now they're talking about pain that they feel, which is true, and I appreciate them for being open and honest, but they're spreading that to the masses. You know what I mean? So
Word.
that is that.
So,
Those are the quotes that I really don't like going out there.
so with that being said, I know you asked me a different question, but just to elaborate on that, two we don't know the difference between coping and healing. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we're facing when it comes to listening to music or just dealing in society in general. And we think just because we don't talk about it, or just because that's old stuff, we're good now.
That's
No,
real.
you're not good. You never healed from that particular situation. So a lot of us as adults have never healed from the trauma and the drama that we faced when we were younger. Whether it's a parent issue, whether it's a boyfriend girlfriend issue, a domestic violence situation, or just trauma that you see in the streets on a regular basis. We haven't healed from those particular things, and instead we cope with it. Sex, drugs, hurting ourselves, hurting others, being violent, all these things, all these ways we lash out. That's just really a cry for help. That's how I know that there's a lot more healing that needs to be done. And healing is done in constructive ways. Therapy is something that was shunned in the Black community for so long, but that's something that we need to get through this, because all of us are dealing with some post-traumatic stress. We're watching Black men and women get murdered in front of our faces. That's traumatic. So we need to take the time to heal from that. Of course, church and praying, but physically going to a therapist or virtually now, and healing and unpacking some of the things that you've experienced in your lifetime could literally save lives.
I definitely agree with you on that. And that's something that we were actually talking about last week. We had an organization here in Philadelphia, which is entitled Black Men Heal. And it's an organization that really just focuses in on Black men. And then we had another one that's called the Bees Network that came out of the DMV area, where they focus on low income families, providing them, services when their insurance doesn't necessarily cover the full cost. And I feel like that is a burden on most of us, because financially, when it comes to supplying our mental, or making sure that our mental is where it needs to be financially, we always make that a burden. Like, I'd rather not go spend that $20 copay on this appointment, because I'd rather go spend this $20 here because I can put it to my light bill or my cable bill or my Wi-Fi. But it's like, when it comes down to putting it on our self-care, it always becomes a burden. Why do you think that? Like, why do we make self-care a burden?
We overthink it. We overthink it, right? And the crazy thing is, self-care is not a burden, but we think it's going to be a burden, right? And what I mean by that is, women, for example, they will get their hair done, they will get their nails done, and usually those things for self-care and pampering yourself cost more than 1 hour of therapy would be. You understand? So it's not that we're not doing self-care, we're just doing it in the ways that we know how.
Okay.
And because therapy is kind of like an unfamiliar territory, uncharted territory, we kind of stay away from it, because if they say a confused mind does nothing, right? So if you're overthinking it, you're not sure. I don't even know where I would go to find a good therapist. You understand? It's like, where's the directory for good therapists that I can relate to? You understand? So it's like, because I have no idea where to go, I have no idea where to turn to, and I have no idea how much it's going to cost, and plus there's a stigma attached to it, I'm like, you know what, I'll worry about that later. And that later never comes. But you still find ways to cope or make yourself feel good, or self-soothing. So a lot of people still do it and spend that money elsewhere.
That's real. And I was actually talking to a friend earlier today, and I feel like even in the black and brown communities, I feel like at this time, more trauma is going to be layered onto us as an entire community. You know how we always say we all have our individual pain and our individual traumas, but I feel like when it comes down to, another black person lost life being lost on some type of social media or some type of news outlet, that is like a trauma that we all feel at once. You know what I mean? And then especially here in the city of Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
they have released the National Guard. So walking down our streets in our neighborhood, we're physically seeing military, cars and combat guns and everything, literally like in a regular neighborhood with no stores, just literally chilling on the block, maintaining the block. And for me, I feel like that's an extra layer of trauma, because it's literally like parents walking right past them because they have somewhere to go with their kids in a stroller. You have people standing at a bus stop that's right next to, a armed truck. So at the same time, it's like, how do we even process that? Because it's like when we have to explain that to our youth. And that was one thing that I was saying too, is I was saying we may not know what's next, but we know who's up next. You know what I mean? And to know
Mm-hmm.
what's next, we need to listen to who's up next. But how do we
Mm-hmm.
even explain to them what's happening right now, when it comes down to the trauma that we're all experiencing at once? Because I'm experiencing it as an adult. So how could I explain that to a child, to the point where you don't want to even teach them what racism is, but you want to explain to them what's going on? Because racism is
Oh,
taught.
there's no way to go around it. You gotta go through it, right? So we can't dance around this subject. We get as much as it sucks. Like, oh man, I don't want to talk to my kid about this. If you don't talk to them, they're gonna be hit in the face with it, and it could be literally hit in the face with racism, right? So you got to make sure as a parent that you're the first point of contact when it comes to some serious conversation, right? I remember my parents didn't even want to talk to me about sex before, but if you don't talk to your kids about sex, oh, they're gonna be exposed to it,
Exactly.
especially with today's internet, especially with social media, everything that's going on right now. Your kids are going to be exposed to it one way or another, and you'll be surprised to see what they know, right? I just watched this video a little bit earlier today. I think it was like a 6-year-old girl speaking on racism, and her mom saw it on her TikTok, and she's like, yo, I didn't even know that my daughter knew about these particular subjects, but she was speaking so eloquently, right? So they know more than we think they knew, we think they do. So we have to be the ones that have some serious talk with them, right? And as adults, it's our job to do that, because sometimes we shy away from it, or even we overcome some certain experiences. Maybe we've experienced racism ourselves, and we try to block it out and leave it in the past. But if we're not the ones that are addressing it with our kids, their friends are going to be talking about it. Social media is going to be exposing them to things that we thought that they weren't ready for. So it'll make a bigger difference if you as a parent are talking to your kids first. So have that honest dialogue. Don't dance around it. You got to go straight to it.
Yes.
Especially if you got 4-year-olds and 6-year-olds walking and marching and everything like that. So you got to be the one to have these conversations with them and just let them know that this isn't right.
I definitely agree with that.
Racism is taught. So spreading love and fighting for your rights can be taught as well.
I definitely agree with you on that. And that makes me want to ask you another question. So when it comes down to putting ourselves on these social media breaks, and that's one thing that we were saying, like, put the phones down, stop, allowing social media to influence you, create these illusions for you, putting it down, because it's just so much chaos going on social media where you don't even know where you stand, because it just makes you upset. And we know nowadays, kids have phones, so they're attached to social media just like us as millennials and adults are attached to their phones, right? So do we tell the child to as well? Do we tell them to put the phone down, or do we tell them no more social media? Like, how do we expose it to them to the point where we can teach them and they're not necessarily getting the exposure from their environments? Because that's typically how I would say my generation grew up. We grew up off of exposing ourselves in different environments, and we learned the street code, and we learned how to do this and street smart and this, that, and the third. You know what I mean? Just based off being exposed to our environment. But right now, these kids don't really have a physical environment, like a tangible environment. Their environment is on these cell phones. They're exploring everything on these phones. So how do we reach them? You know what I mean?
How do How do we reach them, or how do we monitor them? What do you think?
No, I mean, like, reach them to have this conversation, because either we can sit down at a table and have dinner and have a conversation, but then they go pick up their phones and scroll for another 3 hours, and everything we just said went out the window.
Hey, listen, I'm not a parent yet.
Me either. I feel that.
With enough young folks. Yeah, I interact with enough young folks to know that your parents are still in control no matter what happens, right? So your parent, as a parent, I would recommend being able to monitor their social media as well. I know parents that have their kids' passwords, and they're not afraid to be like, yo, delete that girl because she's talking crazy to you, or whatever the case may be, right? So you have to do your job to monitor your children's mental health as well as your own. You got to monitor your own, take a step back, pray, meditate, heal, and stop letting what you see on social media affect who you are. So if it affects you as an adult, what do you think is going to happen on an impressionable child's mind, right? If you're 10, 11, 12 years old and you're seeing the same things that if me as a grown man, I'm enraged,
exactly.
I'm angry, I'm going through an emotional roller coaster. What do you think a 10-year-old is going to be experiencing? You understand? So you have to monitor the time and also the things that they consume on a regular basis, right? And I want you guys to realize a diet is not just the food you consume.
Talk to me.
You got to protect your diet at all costs. A diet is anything that you ingest. It could be what you see. It could be what you hear. It could be what you eat, of course. You got to protect your environment as far as the people around you, because you can have a negative influence, and that's the thing that brings you down. You can be engulfed in toxic relationships, and that's the thing that brings you down. So toxic relationships can kill you mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. It could be draining to you to the point where you're not even yourself anymore, right? So you got to control what you see, what you hear, who you hang out with, in addition to what you eat. So that's all of this is important for your mental health. So as a parent, absolutely monitor your kids' intake. Whatever they intake, you as a parent should be knowing about it. Of course, we can't control 1,000% of the things that they do or see or hear, but you can do your best to be on top of things.
All the parents in the comments probably like, it be the ones that don't got no kids that always got something to say. Be the ones with no kids that got something to say. But we just got an opinion, parents. Exactly. I'll say parents, we just got an opinion, parents. But I want to talk about a post that you put up as well, and I thought this was very well thought out. It said, to be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost at all times. James Baldwin. And I thought that this was much needed at this. I'm like, yo, this man is on point within the last couple of weeks. You've been on it, man. I appreciate that meditation you've been on.
Thank you. Yes. How can you not be mad? Right? He said, if you're relatively conscious, he said, like, you don't even have to be the most go hard, super African on the planet. If you're just relatively conscious, if you're just scrolling through, you'd be like, yo, what
is happening?
Do to you?
Exactly.
What did we do to you? And it's just like, yo, I don't understand. I don't get it. And it's hard to know American history. It's hard to know African history and where we were as kings and queens to where we are now, and how slavery made us who we are today. It's hard to keep uncovering hidden truths and not be angry, and not be upset, and not be outraged, right? So James Baldwin says, to be a Negro in this country and just be relatively conscious, you're in a state of rage almost all the time. But what I'm encouraging everyone to do is redirect that rage.
Talk to me.
Use that fuel. Use your frustration as fuel. Like in the beginning of the conversation, you said, yo, we're more unified now than ever, because we're not talking about just rebuilding the blocks. We're talking about
buying the blocks. Yes.
Like, that's a conversation that we might have not had 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I might have looked at you as my enemy, but now, this frustration about what everything is happening, yo, it makes me want to build a business right now that's going to support Black people specifically. It makes me want to go out and protest and march and make a difference, right? It makes me want to send letters to police officers things I've never done before. Like this, you redirect that rage because, and I'm encouraging everyone to take the time they need to respond instead of react.
That's real.
You understand? My sister commented and she said Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street gets me infuriated every time I think about it.
And the crazy part is that was literally the 99th anniversary Sunday. So it's crazy. Like I said, the universe is the history. His story is repeating himself. You know what I mean? It's showing up and it's shedding light. And it's crazy. At the same day, you know what I mean? We had the same thing 99 years ago. It's happening. The same thing, like legit the same thing. And instead of it happening in one city in Tulsa, it happened in multiple. It happened in 24 cities in this country.
Multiple. That's so wild, man. So yeah. So a lot of us with that rage, most times we just automatically react, and a reaction is an immediate response without thinking, right? It was an impulsive response. An immediate impulsive response is a reaction. Response is when you take the time to reflect and strategize. And a lot of times we're not taking the time to respond. We're just reacting. I'm emotional. I'm going to hurt somebody. I'm going to hurt something. I'm going to burn this down, you know? But I'm not condemning any of that. What I'm saying is that, was that the mission, or that was the marching orders that God gave you, or that's just something that you reacted to off the cuff, right? So you got to think about what are your God-given gifts and how can you expand upon that, right? So if I'm a speaker and I'm a good organizer, I'm going to find a way to organize people and unify us and make us do the right thing, right? Whatever I believe that right thing is. But there's also people that their gifts is in politics, and they want to pursue local or federal politics, right? That's their avenue. They're redirecting that rage. They got a fuel and a vigor both like no other right now, right? I know a congressman or a brother that's running for Congress in New York. All of these killings, all of these situations got him pumped up. He's busting out more phone calls, sending out more emails, just doing whatever he needs to do to win the election. You understand? So there's other people that say, you know what? I'm on the ground levels. I'm organizing this. I'm doing that. I'm fighting. I'm doing it. So whatever your gift is, go harder in it. Go harder in it. So redirect that rage. If you want to build a business, start writing that business plan out and start putting things together. You don't have 5-10 years to wait anymore. The time is now.
And Carl, let me ask you this, and I'm glad that you even brought that up. So on Tuesday, June 2nd, was actually election day here in the state of Pennsylvania. So, Philadelphians went out and we voted. And we got some people in office, and we didn't get some people in office. But I just want to ask you, is that still something that matters in 2020? Like, does voting still matter in 2020? And I'm asking that because even more now, you have millennials who are and you have first-time voters that, that were excited at one point about voting in 2020 that are no longer excited about it, because we just see that no matter if we vote, if we don't vote, the laws still are not in our favor, and it doesn't matter because black people are still not going to get the justice that we need. That's the conversation now when it comes down to voting.
Okay. The short answer to that is yes, voting is still important, right? It is still important. A lot of people saying no. I get it. I understand it. It's a part one and a part two. Too many times, if we do go hard and vote for somebody and they win, we're high-fiving. We're like, yeah, our person's in office. We good now.
Exactly.
And we don't do anything after that. We don't collectively pool our resources. We don't show up to any meetings. We don't have any demands. We just like, we good. We kick our feet up. And that is the issue. We never strategize. If the LGBTQ community wants something done, they're going to pool their resources together. They're going to organize. They're strategic. Facts. And they say, this is what we want. And then we want it right now.
That's
and guess what happens? It's done. It's done. If the Jewish community says, this is what we're doing. We got 1,000 businesses. You're not getting our support unless this, and this happens. Guess what? It gets done. But black people, we just like, all right, cool, he's in office.
But that also
Then
comes with a
what?
check, though, Carl. And all of with all of the
Mm-hmm.
allies that you name and communities that you name, those communities come with a check. Those
Of
communities come like,
course.
I'm going to pay you to do this. It's not even it's not even
Absolutely.
like a conversation. It's more of a command because I'm paying you to do something. You know what I'm saying?
Yo,
So it's now your
that's a
job because you now work for me,
we
initially they supposed to work for us, but you know what I mean. It's
elected
just that we don't come with a check
elected
to be like, now you work for me.
elected officials come with the elected officials work for you,
Hmm.
but they work for the people who come with the bags,
Exactly.
right? So yes, those communities are organized, but they also come with
A
some type
bag.
of check. Hey,
Exactly.
listen, we raised $100,000. This is what we want,
Hmm.
but we can't do that because we're not unified like that.
But
So
what
not
sucks
only
for,
are we
I'm
not.
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just
No,
gonna
you
say
good.
what
Go
sucks
ahead.
for me is that we can raise that money. It's shown time and
Oh,
time and time
absolutely.
that we can raise that money. When Hurricane Katrina hit, we raised that money. When, the hurricane hit in Texas about 2-3 years ago, we raised that money. You know what I mean? Like, we can raise that money. Even now, when it comes down to raising money for coronavirus and getting masks to inmates in prisons and this, that, and the third, we can get it
We're gonna
done. And it's shown that we can get it done. But it's just that all of our money is not going into one community. So like how you said, the LGBTQ, all of them are putting it into one
lock.
pot. The Jewish
They got it
community,
on
all
lock.
of them are putting into one
Got it
pot.
on lock.
Versus us, I feel like we have the money, we're just not collectively putting it into one pot. So it's spread out to this and spread out to this and spread out to this and
1,000.
spread out to this. So we have that 1.3 trillion spending power, but at the same time, it's like, where's that one? That 1.3 trillion is everywhere. You know what I mean? So it's condensed down into little dollars and thousands of dollars. So it doesn't even look like we're coming with, buying power because it's so spread out.
So all I'm gonna say to that is I'm working on a solution for that.
Talk to
Uh,
me.
that's all I can say. If I say anything else, I can't say more than that. But I am working on a solution for that because I realize and I recognize that is the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get 1,000 black anythings together,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But we're gonna fix that. We're gonna fix that real
I'm
soon.
ready for it. And when you ready to drop that information, man, you definitely got to come back and drop that information for us. Definitely first and
Yes.
foremost. But I want to get into the book a little bit before I let you go because Instagram only gave us an hour. So when it comes down to 365 hip hop, right? This book has allowed you into so many different spaces, so many different rooms, so many different tables. And in those rooms, you know what I mean, having that conversation with different people who are on, that level of fame where people actually idolize them. What are their conversations? You know what I mean? Are they here for their fans? Are they here for their supporters? Really?
Oh, 1,000%. Well, I can't say everybody. I
Mm-hmm.
can't say everybody, but majority of them are, right?
Yes.
So,
So we are so as
it
much
was
as
the
emphasis we put in the hip hop community, they are putting it into us as well. We can appreciate that.
we can appreciate that, right?
Okay.
And you gotta you gotta pay attention to them though, right? You gotta pay attention to your favorite artist. And the reason I say that is because the Dream, he got a song. I love this. Probably my favorite song of the Dream. It's called Black, right?
Mm-hmm.
He says, "I learned to never be impressed with a man with no message."
Mm.
So I want y'all to pay attention to not just what these rappers are saying on record, what are they saying and not saying during times like these.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? They say time will either promote you or expose you.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're dealing with the roughest time that America and the world has ever seen, what's your favorite artist saying about it? Are they saying nothing?
Mm-hmm.
Are they not standing up for black culture? Are they only profiting off of black culture but not supporting it? Have you seen them? Yo, I see J. Cole on the front lines marching all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the messages that he's saying. So what is your favorite artist saying? Are they just talking about popping pills or whatever the case may be? Or are they actually talking about making a difference?
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And I'm not I, I'm not a I know a lot of people are Young Thug fans. I'm particularly not a Young Thug fan, and I'm not a fan of his because of what he said on the red carpet when he was asked about Michael Brown.
What'd he
You
say?
know, they asked him, "Hey, do you think it's important for rappers to be role models in these particular situations, especially when it comes to Black lives, and particularly pertaining to Michael Brown?" He's like, nah, man, we just need to let the politicians handle that. And I'm just like, whoa, that's how you really feel? You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, you black men are getting murdered and you think somebody else should handle that and you're the person of influence, right? So I'm just looking at this like, yo, I'm not impressed with a man with no message. So in a time where you're automatically a role model, let me rephrase that. You're automatically an influencer because of your music and your money and all these other things, and you want no parts of serving the black community, I got to look at you with a side eye. You understand?
Black people made them, white people gave them the money.
So you just gotta pay attention to what your favorite artists are saying and what they're not saying.
And that's why I had to ask you that question, you know what I mean? Because the book represents hip-hop. You know, the book represents quotes throughout hip-hop, throughout the time, throughout different dynasties of hip-hop. And that's why I appreciate it so much. When it comes down to even listening to the words, you know, where do you even be in these spaces to, you know what I mean? Like, are you in the crib quiet in front of a fireplace just listening to the music? Like, how do you grab the, you know, the quotes out of these songs so well?
You know what's funny, man? Ever since, you gonna pull this out of me. When I was younger, man, I wasn't the cool kid. You know, I was still trying to find my way, trying to fit in. But I just felt like when I would recite these rap lyrics, I just became cool all of a sudden. You know what I'm saying? So I was studying Bone Thugs and Harmony with my sister. I was studying Bad Boy and Mace and Biggie and Pac and all that. So I'm rapping these lyrics and I'm feeling, you know, more confident. Rappers be cocky. So I'm feeling more confident. And then I just started becoming a lyrics person, you know? So, and then as I became deeper and deeper into motivational speaking and self-improvement, I could be out in the middle of a packed venue and a rapper says a dope line about inspiration. I'm like, oh, that was good. In the middle of a crowded room, in the middle of a crowded venue, I'm like, oh, yo, that's good. Oh, what'd he say? Boom, 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 boom. I'm like, oh, that was a good one. I'm gonna write that down real quick. You know, so I might make a note to myself. But a lot of the lyrics that are in this book, I actually knew them already. Like Jay-Z, Biggie, like those quotes I already knew. And other people I had to really research. And some of them I couldn't find anything that was that inspirational in their music, but I paid attention to their interviews, right? Because oftentimes,
shout out to the media. Give us a little bit of credit.
Shout out to the media. Absolutely. Oftentimes, you project yourself a certain way in the music, but that doesn't mean you're a horrible person, right? I could be the biggest gangster rapper on the planet. Let's say, just use 50 Cent as an example, right? I can be a gangster rapper, 50 Cent, but yo, I learned more in a 1 hour 50 Cent interview.
That's real.
Than most of my business.
Nah, that's real.
You know
that's real.
So I pay attention to every avenue of inspiration. So whether it's your lyrics, whether it's your interviews, whether it's your social media, you might post something dope.
So let me ask you this question when it comes down to content and making sure that you're covering yourself. Do you have to ask permission for this, you know, or like how does, so you don't get no copyrighted, you know, like how does that work?
You got to make sure you consult an attorney, right?
Okay.
So here's some free legal advice for you.
All right. Get your pens and papers out, ladies and gentlemen.
When it comes to my lawyer uses a big word I had to look up. He said when it comes to quoting people's lyrics that they use as far as gaining revenue, you're quoting copywritten things. You just cannot be egregious, and you have to give them credit for it. I'm like, what's egregious mean? It basically means you can't OD with it, right? You can get a little
snippet of it
and give them the proper credit for it, you know. So the issue comes when I'm taking a whole verse and I'm trying to put it in a book. Like, oh, you're doing too much. DTM, you're browning out here. Right? But when you take a snippet and you give them the proper credit, it's not an issue, right? The issue comes when I'm taking your words and I'm trying to front like it's my words. These ain't my words, right? So that's when something happens.
Definitely. Right? I want to get this question in real quick. I thought this was a really great question to say. You're such an inspiration. Who in your life is inspiring or pushing you?
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Definitely appreciate the question.
Well, in my life, in my life, a lot of different things happen in my life. Positive black men is the short answer for that.
That's what's
I
up.
was blessed to have both of my parents in my life. My father is still with me, and he's still with my mother to this day. To this day. And they've been married over 35 years, so I look at him as an inspiration. One, he's
and you ain't got no kids. I know they pressuring you right now. I know they pressuring.
They are. So I'm a super hard worker. I don't know when to quit, but I get that from my dad. He has the strongest work ethic that I've ever seen in my life. But my 5th grade teacher, Mr. Williams, he's the one that taught me poetry and Maya Angelou, Langston Hughes, and this was back in like '95 when they had the original Million Man March.
Awesome.
He marched with Farrakhan and every one of those brothers as well. So that was inspiring to me when I was younger. And then I met my mentor, Mr. Darnell Self, multi-millionaire. So every step of the way, I get a new mentor.
Awesome.
Right? Because my dad is incredible as far as work ethic, treating your family and things of that nature, but he couldn't show me how to make $1 million. You understand? So I had to learn from other people. And as far as music is concerned, again, I learn from people who have a message and are really about something. Of course, Jay-Z is one of my biggest influences because of his story. More than, even though I think the music is dope, his story is so inspirational. Dude came from the bottom of the bottom in the projects all the way up to
a billionaire
businessman and married the baddest woman on the planet. You can't write a better story than that. You
That's
know what
real.
I mean? So a lot of people inspire me, and my sister's on the line too. She's a great inspiration. She's a financial expert, and she helps me with a lot of things business-wise. So she's really dope. So shout out to S Cherry 75. I appreciate her for that. So a lot of people, I gain inspiration from everybody, really. You know, so I'm able to pull from the positive out of everybody that I meet.
No doubt.
You know, so.
And I want to ask you this last question before I let you go, Carl. I appreciate you, man. We need a part 2 because I got a lot more I got to get into with you, honestly, truly. But I want to ask you this last question because you do this so confidently, and not a lot of people do this confidently. You put God in your messages. You even take time out to stop and pray on Instagram Live for people who just need a prayer. You know what I mean? And when it comes down to building a platform and having a business, a lot of people shy away from religion or just shy away from even having that conversation because they don't want to scare people away, you know, because everybody has their own right to a religion, you know, a right to, everybody has their own right, you know what I mean? So a lot of people don't really want to touch on that because it can be a very touchy, you know, sensitive subject, but that's not something that you do. You come at it and you come in at it very confidently. They're going to accept it or they're not going to accept you as a person, you know? So why did you make that decision, you know, or when did you start to integrate that into, you know, what you do as a businessman?
Looking to enhance your brand awareness? Well, guess what? Revive Radio has created a platform for you, yes, you, to spread your brand and your brand's message. Revive Radio offers affordable advertising packages to artists, entrepreneurs, and small businesses. You can find more information about that at reviveisalive.com. And guess what? You can also book P.O.C. as your next brand ambassador. Hit us up right now at revive.poc@gmail.com.